Good evening and thank you for joining us for Neighborhood Livability and Enforcement, a model that works. I'm Shirley Wright, chair of Forever Tybee, a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works for ethical, open, and transparent government and is dedicated to finding common ground for solutions to ongoing problems. Our membership includes residents, business owners, and those who are interested in living on Tybee Island but aren't here yet. Our goal is to ensure that there is a seat at the table for residents and the resident perspective, because all issues that impact Tybee impact our residents' daily and ongoing quality of life. For several years, we've been aware of the urgent need to build the permanent resident community and to strengthen our neighborhoods, especially in the face of growing tourism on our island. We know that after we have good ordinances and we apply consistent application for all the rules, we have to have a strong, effective code enforcement operation that is essential to ensure that tourists and residents follow agreed upon rules. On January 31, we spotlighted Tybee's local code enforcement leadership, their successes and their challenges during their first 3 years of startup. And we have a good understanding of their status quo. Tonight, we are going to hear from a more established model in Charleston, South Carolina. After much research into other cities, we believe we found the best person available to help us see what Tybee's future might be. Dan Riccio is a native of Charleston, where he attended both public and private schools. After graduating from Bishop England Catholic High School in 1983, he joined the Army and served as a communications specialist and a paratrooper. His first job as a police officer was with the Medical University of South Carolina Department of Public Safety. Then he became a certified police officer and was hired by the city of Charleston in 1988. And during his police career, he did everything. He served in patrol, narcotics, vice, SWAT, aviation, warrants, property crimes, detective, division commander, and then livability court liaison. Dan retired from the Charleston Police Department in 2010 and immediately accepted a position as the director of livability of the newly formed City of Charleston Livability Division. Then in 2015, they merged with the Tourism Division. As director of the department, Dan oversees commercial and residential environmental code enforcement, tourism management and enforcement, short-term rental compliance and enforcement, residential long-term rental registry, and special events management and permitting. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Management and a Master of Arts in Human Resources Management from Webster University. And when he is ever home, he spends time with Margaret, his wife of 40 years, his 2 sons, and 5 grandchildren. I first heard about Dan Riccio in 2018 from an article in Travel Weekly. It was an article about his participation in the George Washington University's International Institute of Tourism and was dealing with solutions to over-tourism. To quote from the article that discussed how governments across the country were not taking tourism seriously enough, it said, "One good example is Charleston and Dan Riccio, director of livability and tourism, where they have tackled tourism issues by becoming perhaps the only U.S. city," this was in 2018, "with officers who specifically enforce tourism laws." So Dan, how we have looked forward to this evening, and I'm going to turn the program over to you now to tell us everything we need to know about what you have achieved, and then assuming that you leave anything unanswered, we may have some questions for you at the end. Welcome.
Wow, that is by far the best introduction I've ever received. I appreciate everything. I'm very passionate about my role with Charleston. I am very passionate about livability and tourism. It's a balance and quality of life for local residents and visitors alike. So I'm going to take you through this little journey this evening of how I transformed from a police officer on patrol fighting crime to basically fighting a different kind of crime with quality of life issues, right? What's comfortable in the community and how neighbors can be neighbors and live amongst each other and live. So I'm going to go into my PowerPoint presentation, and I will start it now. So thank you again, everybody. This is my journey from absolutely no code enforcement division to where we are today from 2002 until 2023 today. So I'll start by preferencing what the beginning aspects of addressing quality of life in Charleston. There was a livability court created in 2002 by Mayor Riley, who was our former mayor, and it was the first livability court created in this country. It only dealt with quality of life issues because, to reference, prior to the livability court, these cases that dealt with property standards of cutting your lawn, your litter, your overgrowth, your property maintenance, and even barking dogs, things that affected our community, was actually enforced through the regular municipal court. So your docket would consist of a domestic violence case, a misdemeanor drug case, trespassing, your nuisance issues of real kind of crime issues, and then you would have a barking dog or a overgrown lot or your grass is too high. So the concern was there was no venue to really focus on these quality of life issues and make sure that once they were addressed, that they were followed up. So that was the big disconnect in Charleston. So Mayor Riley had the wherewithal to create this court. So what Mayor Riley and our primary judge Maloney did, they created their own docket and created a livability court. So only cases that pertain to quality of life are handled in this court. And we created it in 2002. I was a police officer. I was in the warrants division. Believe it or not, my sole job was handling high-risk warrant service. And I was asked to partake in this assignment, which I did not say no, because any self-respecting Southerner would know if you're asked to do something by your boss, please say yes. So I did. And my sole job was to be a liaison to several city departments and train for court preparation, for documentation, and then I would have to follow up each and every case that came through court. So we came up with an acronym for our court process of CURE: consistency, uniformity, responsiveness, and enforcement. But guess what? Even as a police officer, I encountered some issues. Each department had its own code enforcement officer assigned. So therefore, I had to go to other supervisors to ask for things to be done within the city. This created communication barriers with each supervisor. Even though I was with the police, they questioned me, you know, this is my code enforcement person. You're not their supervisor. So I had some issues with that. And I came up with a proposal and thought it would be better to have all code enforcement under one umbrella and one supervisor and have some type of division to address all these concerns. So that's the next step in our journey of livability and tourism. Sorry. And I'm having, oh, there you go. Sorry. So, sorry. In 2010, I retired from the police department. Prior to that, I did approach then Mayor Riley with a proposal that we needed to have consistency throughout the city with code enforcement. He agreed. He put a committee together, and they formed the basic framework for a livability division. So these tasks or components would consist of residential and code enforcement issues of sanitation and environmental cleanliness and things of that nature, substandard housing, which are vacant buildings, which we do have throughout our community and their historic properties. And there was also the creation of some type of quick response squad that could respond to graffiti issues and also other little maintenance issues of cleaning right-of-ways and dump outs of people dumping trash after collection, and to respond to these locations and clean up and just take care of the issue. Oh. So in our residential code enforcement, and it's all enforcement, is officers enforce litter and overgrowth in residential properties, derelict vehicles, those are inoperable, unregistered vehicles, accumulation of debris on private property and public property, and trash dump outs is what we consider after collection, placing your stuff at the curb, and residential garbage disposal. And I'll get better at this as we go along. We also have commercial code enforcement, which these officers are responsible for regulating ordinances applicable to commercial activity, right? We need to make sure that properties along our main business corridors are clean. Business owners have the responsibility to do this, especially restaurants create a lot of trash and grease on our sidewalks, which are bluestone, and we need to make sure that we have a mechanism in place to ensure that these storefronts are clean, obviously for when our tourists visit and when our residents are visiting. We have a substandard housing team, which deals with just solely substandard housing, vacant buildings. A lot of issues we have with our vacants are unprobated estates, it's heirs properties, a lot of issues that go with that. And then obviously the financial constraints of rehabilitating these properties. So there are minimum standards that individuals who own these properties have to keep. They have to be watertight, meaning the roof needs to have no holes. The windows and doors need to be boarded. We need to keep the bad people out and obviously keep the yards free of overgrowth and litter, and place no trespassing signs so that the police department can enforce and arrest at times that they deem necessary. We also have our quick response squad, like I mentioned. We have a graffiti machine that we eradicate graffiti on public right-of-ways. These are your commonly traffic control devices that people like to tag and graffiti over. We don't take kindly to that. So we have a team that all they do every day is go around eradicating these issues. We also have issues with signage on your corners going throughout the city, people placing advertisements for we'll buy your house or buy your car and things of that nature. Anything in the right of way is deemed unlawful. It's a nuisance, it's litter, and it's also a distraction for folks that are driving. So we take that very seriously as well. So with all these aspects in place, we have a process of enforcement. our main goal is to try to resolve problems before going to court. Our last resort is going to court. We issue violation notices, but we have a typical time frame of 10 days for compliance. However, we treat every case independently. There could be extenuating circumstances that people are having. They're having financial issues. They're elderly. They don't have family to help. So we take that into account. And oftentimes, I even assign my maintenance crew to go to cut an individual's grass or things of that nature, or clean their yard, no cost to them. It's, to me, a free service. And if they're experiencing some hardships. But unfortunately, some people don't want to comply. We have to go the court route, which are criminal violations. So they're pretty serious violations. And the maximum fine is up to $1,087 that the judge should impose. However, we still, again, try to work with people, and we're out to resolve problems rather than create a hardship of financial issues with individuals trying to take care of their properties. So our department on our journey here changed even furthermore. Started out with 8 people in 2010. I got a montage of people from public service, sanitation, streets and sidewalks, the core group of code enforcement. But everything changed with our department in 2015, and actually before that in 2014. In 1978, Charleston, South Carolina was the first city in America to develop a tourism management plan. A tourism management plan, as you all know, is a directive, is a roadmap to deal with your congestion, wayward finding, things of that nature, to help citizens and visitors navigate the city and try to coexist. So the issue we had, obviously, our first tourism management plan was in 1978. The next one wasn't conducted until 1994. After that, 1998. Between 1998 and when this next committee was formed, our tourism had basically tripled. We were up to 7, or at that point, 6 million tourists. And at this point, the citizens felt we needed to come up with a new management plan to guide them and the city and help us deal with the influx of individuals coming to the city and balance that quality of life with our residents. So basically, the tourism management plan commission formed. So it basically outlined several topics: tourism management enforcement, visitor orientation, quality of life, special events, mobility and transportation. But guess what? There was no tourism enforcement at this time. There was a part-time or a full-time police officer doing part-time tourism enforcement duties that could not keep up with the demand of the issues that were arising in our tourism industry. So it was quickly brought out in public forum that why have these bodies of individuals meet if there's no enforcement at the end of the rainbow? So why are we going to work so hard on a plan when we complete that plan? No one's going to be there to enforce and make sure that these regulations are being followed through. So I was asked at that point, as just code enforcement, to hire 3 tourism enforcement officers. We had no curriculum. I had to create the policies and to create the enforcement actions and ordinances to be applicable to addressing the needs that this committee was going to be finalizing and updating to try to resolve issues that were happening throughout the city of Charleston. So very early on in 2014, I was asked, hire 3 code enforcement officers, let their primary mode of transportation be on bicycle, on foot, establish some type of tourism hotline for cell phone so that citizens can call in complaints, and also let them be ambassadors to the city. They want to be friendly greeters of visitors that come to Charleston, right? So there's a montage of issues that we deal with. And when I reference tourism management enforcement, we manage all the industry that provide these tours in the city of Charleston that create traffic congestion, pedestrian. So our goal is to try to be, I call us tourism traffic controllers, to try to spread the activities evenly throughout the city so that everybody can coexist, right? So we manage carriage tours. There's over 40,000 carriage tours in the city of Charleston yearly. We manage coach bus routes, touring routes, and parking areas for the large buses. We have smaller certified buses. Those are small buses that do these smaller tours that go throughout the city. We address walking tours. These are groups of up to 20 people traversing the sidewalks, right? And they have to be courteous and be able to conduct a tour alongside of individuals and residents traversing the sidewalks. We have issues with our pedicabs doing their little unlawful tours when they're really designed to do just like a cab, point A to point B transportation. We also deal with road closures, which I'll get into. Now at this point, we have progressed to 7 TEOs on staff, and I have an equine manager on staff, and I'll get into that regarding all the carriage tours that we deal with. So, excuse me. This tourism management plan basically formed our department. It was recommended by the plan that didn't say livability, but it was the only quality of life division in the city, needed to merge with the tourism division. It was about 8 or 9 members of clerks that permitted these entities throughout the city. So it was quickly discovered that we need to address the impasse in the public of all these millions of tourists coming into the city. Then over 7 million tourists visit yearly. Now we have an economic impact just in Charleston, 8.1 billion yearly. It's about 24, 25 billion statewide. So it's a lot of tourists coming to the city spending their money. So our department mission was kind of reformed to balancing residential and visitor quality of life through our cleanliness, right? We want our city to be clean, through our permitting management and our enforcement processes that we now have in place. So I'm going to go through how we deal with the different entities. We have very specific rules and regulations set up for these large coach buses that come in. I'll start with, you know, city of Charleston was meant actually for carriage travel, right? It's a very old and historic district. These buses are big. There's only so many roads that these buses can traverse and not create damage to trees and things of that nature. So it's a requirement that when a bus comes into Charleston, a coach bus, they must apply with us. They must send an application in letting us know their manifest. How many people are you going to have? Where are you going to be visiting? What hotels you're going to? And we take all that information down, and we also provide them with the map of, hey, when you come to Charleston, there's only so many parking areas, loading, unloading zones, and roads that you can travel on because you are a big type of vehicle. So we do this proactively prior to us starting our merge in 2015, everything was done on the fly. Basically, buses would come into town. They would go to a location at the visitor center, get a permit, and go about their way. Now we require coach bus activity to file in advance up to 6 months if they have to. So 98% of coach bus activity is already pre-planned prior to coming to Charleston. So we know their manifest, we know their locations where they're going, and we provide them with the map to make sure that they traverse the city accordingly. So we went above that, a little ahead of that. So we provide them, before they come to the city, an app that they can locate on our website and through their cell phone, a GIS-based map for our perimeter map. And it also indicates on there, it's interactive. It has road closures, things of that nature. It shows them all the parking areas. It shows them restrooms, and it also shows them where they need to go for their loading and unloading. This has dramatically reduced congestion of coach buses just parking in the middle of the street and being, offloading their passengers. So GIS-based technology is at the forefront with our department now, and I'll go into a little bit more of that as we go along. One of our biggest industries are the horse carriage tours. They have certain routes that can be in. There's only 28 carriage tours that can be out within the city in these zones in any particular time. So it's important that we have a system in place to navigate this activity as it happens in real time. So as you notice, we have 5 different zones, and then I'll show you the process of what happens when someone goes onto a carriage tour in the city. We have a gate process at the hub of where all the carriage companies exist, and they load up at their barn. So we have clerks and tourism officers at this primary location, and what their job is to do is to greet the carriage with the tourists on the carriage. And there's a lot of information that we have to take. And prior to me taking over, everything was done by paper. And there was a lot of issues and inconsistencies. Right now, everything is GIS based, and it's all done in a database on a tablet in real time at the gate. So a lot of information is going on. We need to know the horse's name, and I'll get to that for safety reasons. We need to know the carriage driver's name. We need to know how many people were on board. That's for tax purposes. We need to know which carriage that they're operating on, because that is to make sure that the vehicle they're operating has a certificate of appropriateness approved by our tourism commission. So there's a lot of activity going on just to go on a carriage tour. And it's all uploaded simultaneously in our database. And now we have a GIS-based GPS system that we give them, and I'll get into that in a sec. So our GPS that we deliver to these individuals, because we know what happens when horses are out on the street, right? What's the biggest quality of life issue we experienced was urine. And unfortunately, the horses do have diapers, but occasionally the diapers spill, right? So we have to have a method in place to get these spills cleaned up quickly, because you don't want the smell out there. You don't want the obstruction out there. And prior to our technology base, we had a antiquated system, whereas we have a third-party contractor that is responsible for cleaning these spills. So there was a communication gap between the reporting process of the carriage driver supposed to radio in to this cleanup equine sanitation company, And there was a lot of finger pointing and no accountability because the spills were remaining. They weren't being cleaned up. The driver would have to drop a little ball with a little flag on it to indicate where the spill was. And it was just a mess. It was very complicated. So I came up with this idea one day, there's got to be a way to identify these spills with technology. And we were able to do some research with our IT department. And I was perusing the internet and saw that there were these GPS devices that these rural workers, like your linemen in rural areas with no cell phone activity, they would carry these GPS devices in the event of an emergency. And when they push the button, that signal and their longitude and latitude coordinates would go to their main office. So they knew there was an emergency if the button was pushed. So what would happen is the dispatcher at their office would call emergency services and give them the exact coordinates to locate their injured, possibly injured coworker. So we use it just for the opposite. We use it to locate these spills that occur throughout the city. We have it now down to 99.9% accuracy. Our TEOs carry a tablet. The sanitation company carries a tablet. When a carriage driver carries this on their lanyard, they report a spill. All they do is hit a button. That button produces an X on the map, and then that tells the company where to go. The company goes to that location. They clear it when they clean it. So we have a record of the response time and then when it was cleaned and who it was cleaned by. So now we have accountability of the carriage driver and the equine sanitation company taking care of the reported spill, which was really a big issue for our local residents and has gotten down to almost zero complaints at this point. We have a dashboard that we keep track of all the companies that perform these tours, and it tells us which driver alerted, which sanitation worker went, how long it took them to get there, what they need to do to take care of it. So what we do is we audit this, we monitor it, and we can determine if there are drivers performing, just for hypothetical, 15, 20 tours a day, and they're only calling in one spill, we know we have an issue. So we have the accountability factor now to call their company and say, look, your driver so-and-so, something's not right here with the math. You need to have a prayer with them, and then make sure they become in compliance. So this just keeps everybody honest, and it's really helped our quality of life throughout the city with the smells of the urine and the other stuff that happens. So it's really made a big difference for us. So we do have an equine manager. We have a lot of animal activists, and no problem with them. They need to be there. They need to be aware and make sure these animals are cared for. But I'll tell you, our animal welfare ordinance is one of the strictest in the country. But I went a little further beyond that. I wanted somebody on staff that was trained in equine emergency issues, that can handle these horse situations at a minute's notice. And I happen to have someone on staff that was raised with horses, owns horses, has pastures. So I sent her to many, many schools to get her the credentials so that we can basically be transparent and let the community know, let the advocates know that we have a trained staff member to address any emergency situation, any issue with these horses as they complete these tours throughout the city. So our equine manager, she monitors every day. She checks records, especially during the summer when the heat goes up. That's our biggest challenging time. She also follows up and responds to incidents involving horse-drawn carriages. We have situations. These are animals. They get spooked. There could be a dump truck. There could be a cement mixer. It could be loud noise to spook these animals. And we do have incidents resulting from that. We do many, many reroutes based on that. When our guys are out there checking the areas, they make sure if they come across or it's reported, there's a dump truck or a loud cement mixer at South Battery and Water Street, we do a reroute to keep those horses and animals away. So we take pride in having actually the only equine manager in this country that their specific job is to make sure these animals are safe. And we take pride in that as well. During the summer, we became very transparent, GIS based again. We have on our website, if we have to monitor when the ambient temperature reaches 95 or the heat index reaches 110, we have to start pulling these horses off the street. So what we do is we had some issues with people not trusting us, saying that, how do I know what thermometer you're looking at? We look at official thermometers that are actually codified by code that where our official thermometers are. So we put it online. When my manager is taking these readings to remove these horses from the street, the people in the public can go to the website and monitor in real time as we are performing our duties. So that just eases their mind that we're doing what we're supposed to do and we're taking care of the issue and we're making sure these animals are safe. We also have a lot of complaints. I get complaints or had complaints. There's too many animals out there. There's more than 28. There's 1,000 animals out there. So what we do now is, as you know, carriage tours, they create traffic backup, right? You can get behind a carriage. You can have 4 or 5 cars. People get frustrated. They want to go around the city. They want to do their daily routine, and they get behind a carriage and they can't get where they want to when they want to. So I became transparent. We got with our GIS department and they came up with an app that the public can go to online in real time, and it will tell them how many carriages are in each of these zones. It gives them the map, and they know they can even go to that before they even travel and pre-plan. It's like, well, there's a couple of horses over here. I'm going to go this route. So it's really been a positive feedback from our community and residents. We also oversee special events, which is very important. Special events, we have the Cooper River Bridge Run. We have Food and Wine. We have the Seaweed, Southeastern Wildlife Expo. All that was a part of the plan to come to our department as one core group or department to handle one, quality of life, and to make sure that all these issues and that the result from tourism special events are handled under one umbrella. And that's how it's done today. So our special events manager, she chairs our committee. We have, she deals with all the applications that come in. We have 9 members on board from each department, which are your fire marshal, your police, your traffic and transportation, parks and recreation, cultural affairs, our Department of Tourism, and they all collectively meet bi-weekly. They review all the events that come into Charleston and to make sure that they're safe and make sure that they don't impact the right-of-ways and the community as much as possible. We also conduct after-action reviews on each event. Seaweed just happened a week or so ago. We're going to do a after-action review to make sure if any issues came up, we can try to correct some issues before next year's event so that we make it more seamless as possible. I'm going to get into, sorry, Short-term rentals. What happened in 2016, 2017? We all experienced this big boom. Well, guess what? Even Charleston experienced it heavily. We had one zoning ordinance that was weak and really couldn't address the impact of short-term rentals. The public wasn't up in arms. You had people that want it. These are just some takeaways from the Post and Courier. We had people that wanted it, people that didn't want it. The impact was our call volume was out of control with loud parties and trash and no way to regulate the parking. And it was just a huge nuisance. So our mayor decided to form a task force, basically, of all stakeholders to include business owners, realtors, people that wanted to actually get involved with short-term rentals. So everybody had a stake in the game, and it took literally about 14 to 15 months for this body of people to agree on a certain ordinance that would regulate short-term rentals in Charleston. I can tell you we have one of the strongest, I'm told by the VRBO, I'm told by many cities throughout the nation, we actually enforce this criminally with our ordinance that came out of this body of members from the community. So basically our short-term rental enforcement, the process and the ordinance was adopted in April of 2018. So that gave us a few months to kind of get together and figure out how we're going to do this after the ordinance was enforced. So I had to hire 3 new code enforcement officers, and all they did, and all they do, 100% of their time is short-term rental enforcement. So we had a lot of work to do, a lot of educating. So we had to obviously go through processes to hire then and now software to monitor these locations of advertisements for short-term rentals. It's called Granicus. I'll get into that a little bit more in the next slide. But our permit application started in July 2018. Our enforcement began in 2018. We were lenient at first, trust me, until everybody got a little hang of what was going on. And our officers' investigation began. So the biggest, the strongest, the most important aspect, in my opinion, of this basically 12, 13, 14 page ordinance is advertising without a permit on any website without a permit number from the city of Charleston is a violation. It's very easy to prove in court that if you're holding your property up for advertising for short-term rental and you don't have a permit, all we have to do is check. So that's the strongest teeth involved with our ordinance. It's obviously one of the strongest ones that I know of, and that's implemented in any city throughout this United States. We hired short-term rental Granicus software. What this software company does, they monitor these sites, these rental sites, and they're not just, I will tell you, there's more than VRBO and a couple of other ones that you really know. There are hundreds of platforms that advertise to get people's businesses. So our software that we use, this third-party company, they utilize API for web extraction software. And what that basically means is application programming interface. So what it basically means is when you and I go to, say, VRBO, we want to get a vacation rental, you're only seeing basic information. You're seeing, okay, I want to go to, say, Tybee Island, and Tybee Island comes up. Oh, that's nice. I like that. But it's only going to give you the host information. Half the time they don't give you the address. They don't do that in Charleston. They will not, they try to circumvent our processes without showing us an address. Doesn't show you owner information. It just shows you, hey, book this. Here's your host. We'll guide you through this process. What this software does, it gives us owner information. It gives us property location. It gives us how many times they rented the property throughout the year, how much money they made from their rental of these properties, and all the information we need to proceed. But most cities that I've had interaction with, they're not worried about the criminal ordinance and enforcement. They're worried about the tax money, which is fine. Most the communities of Folly Beach and Isle of Palms, that's what their focus is. But our focus is quality of life. If it's too much, we don't need it. So we focus on making sure these properties are safe through fire marshal inspections. It's a pretty rigid process to go through. So my officers start from scratch. I made it very, very clear early on. There's no way I could go to court and present a case based on third-party information that we did not basically justify. We did not prove where they got the information from. So my guys get the information from them. Here's the location. They're advertising without your permit number. Go for it. So what they do is they follow up from scratch. They check county records. They check state records. They check social media to find out who the hosts are, other information that may apply to the case. They go to these locations. They take pictures. Most of the residences have a lockbox, right? A combination lockbox. That's not normal in your residential neighborhood. So there's evidence indicative of renting short-term throughout any community. Also, if you notice, it's like a hotel. You know when it's expected for your maids to come. They come and check out, right? They got to come clean it up. So we get pictures of the people coming into these properties and doing their service. So we build this huge case. We bait stamp everything. It's a pretty thick file. We have not lost one case yet because of the processes we have in place. Our first line of defense, though, we do give them the opportunity to comply. We send a cease and desist letter to everybody. We don't have to do that. We do that first and foremost. Hey, you may not know that you have the opportunity to stop advertising your unpermitted short-term rental. So here's your chance. If they don't, then we do issue a court summons. We either hand deliver it if they're local, but we really rely on process servers because a lot of these owners live out of state and they try to buy these properties and to short-term rent. But a part of that ordinance now is you must be owner occupied 4% property to rent a short-term in the city of Charleston. So you basically have to live there 180 days out of the year while you're renting your property. A lot of people don't like that, but it has worked here. May not work in other communities, but it does here. So it's more work to show that they're not there during this time. That's fine and dandy, but our enforcement is to the point that we can prove these in our court system. So far, believe it or not, in the entire city, we have 558 active short-term permits. So, I will reference that too, or preference that, where we do have an overlay zone known as Cannon Elliott Borough, which is a certain subdivision. They are allowed to have, and have been since 2011, to have a commercial overlay for short-term rentals. But that is basically, there's no more that can go in there. It's done before we created this ordinance. So that does add to the numbers, but all in all, even with the commercial, we have 558. So far, we've issued about 702 summonses. So far, 667 cases have been adjudicated. Court fines, it's not a big revenue stream. We're not looking at that, but for the cost of doing business, we've accumulated probably at this point more than $500,000. We've issued many warning violations, which have resulted in compliance, which is what we like. But one of the biggest aspects that we get excited on and about, we determine and we realize, wow, through our enforcement efforts, we're returning houses back to the housing stock for affordable housing and for long-term rentals or for people to sell. So we credit ourselves to returning about 271 residences back to the housing stock in Charleston that can be used for families living there, affordable housing, and the like. Last but not least is we just got kicked off today. We started at the beginning of February we have a long-term rental registration now. So we, as a college town, College of Charleston, there's about 12,000 students, 10,000 of those live off campus, right? So there's a lot of issues with college parties around these residential neighborhoods with noise, garbage put out, which means not taking your trash out, leaving the trash out, disturbances with the parties, and even life safety issues. So City Council just passed 2 months ago a rental registration pilot program. We're starting in one neighborhood. It's going to be a registration required for every owner of a long-term rental property. So there are fees involved with that, which don't exceed $100, which we're not looking again for monetary. But it's also going to require from our now, if you own 4 or more rental properties, you only have to have 1 business license. Now, if you own 2 or more, you have to have a business license for those properties. So that is going to be a revenue generator for the city. They have to register every year, but the big positive out of this is the biggest obstacle we've had. If we go to a property, we don't know who the property owner is. A lot of them live out of state. So now they're required to have an emergency contact person within 30 miles of Charleston that is on this application, that when we go to a property, we can pick up the phone, call a number, and have an issue resolved in hours versus days and sometimes weeks. So we're experimenting with this program. It's going to be a positive transition. It's going to be very productive that I can foresee at this point. But that's our journey in Charleston. We've grown from 8 people to 30, and we do everything from making sure the residents have a good quality of life and that the visitors have a good quality of life as well. Yeah. I'll stop sharing screen. Miss Shirley, you good?
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So gosh, Dan, thank you so much for all that information. And it certainly raised a bunch of questions for me. One of the questions I have is, have you used your GPS mapping for other issues than the equine issues? I was thinking about where dogs are unauthorized and golf carts and things like that. Have you used it in other areas?
We have not. the beauty of when it comes to dogs, you have personal property, right? When it comes to golf carts, you have personal property. With the carriage industry, they're managed through us. So they have the right, if they're properly permitted, to operate on our city streets. So that gives us the legal authority to make sure that they're where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. So there's some constitutional concerns if we go out of that gamut of requiring a homeowner to have their dog with GPS, or requiring a property owner of a golf cart to have a GPS device. That would seriously be constitutionally challenged. Again, with the industry, we could probably have purview with coach buses, but then they're mandated by transportation state law. So there's a lot of constitutional issues that come up when we have a GPS. That's getting in your business, right? When we're tracking you. But if you're going to operate on a city street in Charleston, you're going to conduct tours, you're supposed to be in a safe manner, you're supposed to respond, and you're supposed to report these spills, then we have a right to make sure that you're doing that. So constitutionally, it's accepted. And that's been brought up, trust me, with these other issues. That would probably be a huge legal hurdle to overcome, to require other individuals to utilize GPS and have us monitor that.
So I'm going to jump around a little bit. We had a lot of questions submitted, so forgive me for not staying on a strict issues.
You're fine.
Around. How much does alcohol overuse play a role in what you have to do?
Not really much, to be honest with you, alcohol use. There is a lot of, we work very closely with the police department. I am retired from our police department. We have very good ties. We do have dumb people sometimes, sorry to be blunt, that partake more than what they should. But then that goes to the realm of law enforcement. Okay. And they take over from that point. My officers are not sworn. They don't carry a gun. They don't carry protection. They just merely enforce these public nuisance / quality of life ordinances. So any alcohol related issue that we do encounter them. Don't get me wrong. But then we notify our police department to intervene on our behalf.
Okay. What have you found to be the advantages or the disadvantages of code enforcement being a part of law enforcement or not being a part of law enforcement? Since it became its own division, what are the...
I will tell you, when it's separated, I was with the police department and now it is not. I think the tie is, it's important in my book, if you don't have a law enforcement experienced individual overseeing it, then you need to fall under the umbrella of the police department. That's just my professional opinion. You need to have the backing of law enforcement to enforce some of these laws. With that said, most cities' code enforcement divisions fall under the police department. Yeah. We did, but we had the advantage because I retired from the police department. My goal is to have a former police officer take over with the same ties to our police department to keep the continuity going. It still can be done, don't get me wrong. We've just established ourselves and we're confident that we have grown to a point that we can manage ourselves without being under the purview of a police department.
I think I remember that you told me that your code enforcement workers work sort of regular hours, and then after a certain hour, it gets turned over to the police department. With all that law enforcement has on their plate, what priority do the code enforcement issues on those off hours generally take, and how are they followed up on later?
Very, very good question. Most of the issues that arise are college parties with the police officers. And that's where they rely on us to help. With our new rental registration, that will help. We have information even prior to this being codified. You know, we did our own database and research and tracked property managers, contact information. This registration is just making our toolbox a little easier to use. Before that, we had to dig on our own to try to get the information we needed. Now we won't have to do that. So typically, we will get several calls a week from the police department saying, Dan, we went to a college party last night. They ran inside, they shut the door. It was horrible. It was loud. We don't have the information needed to issue a summons. So what we do, we visit that location the next day. We have a very good relationship with our College of Charleston Public Safety, which I worked with the chief for many, many years. So it's good to have that relationship. And we have a good relationship with the dean's office. So what we do is we follow up, we get the information from the landlord, the student information. We sometimes even issue the summons for the officer. The officer comes to court, testifies. We're just the writing instrument for that case. We're not witnessing anything other than after the fact. And sometimes there are admissions. Yeah, we had a party. I'm sorry. We were too loud. So we are able to testify to that point that, okay, they basically confessed that they screwed up and they want our help. So we pass all that information to the college dean's office. They call them in administratively under the code of conduct. So we have a pretty good system in place to try to keep everyone doing the right thing. That's all.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how your department, you've talked about the areas that you oversee. How are your officers assigned? Is it by area, geography? Tell us a little bit about that. And also a little bit about how you recruit, what you look for, if there's a profile for a good code enforcement person.
Yep. I will tell you one of the biggest challenges in code enforcement. It may be now becoming a profession, but there honestly is not a lot of training programs out there for code enforcement. What we do now for building code, yes, that's different. But for code enforcement, what we deal with are your property standards, your cleanliness, things of that nature. Now it's becoming ever evolving to people are starting to get on the bandwagon and say, well, look, this is becoming a profession. We need to pay attention to this. We need to create programs to provide cities with the resources for their officers to be more trained, right? So as far as the jurisdictional, I do it the same as I did in police department. I do it by teams. I do it by jurisdictional boundaries. The city is big. We don't just do the peninsula, right? We don't oversee the peninsula. We have Daniel Island, James Island, Johns Island, West Ashley are suburbs of the city. We have hundreds of thousands of city residents, right? So we have officers in each of those areas to address concerns as they come in every day. So it's almost, I've modeled it just like I would a patrol team. I model it after jurisdictional boundaries with the city of Charleston is honestly, our boundaries are created by the rivers, by the waters, right? Teams are separated by the bridges and the waters. So we do the same thing with code enforcement. I have people assigned on all the islands, and I have people assigned down on the peninsula to address any concerns that come to fruition. Recruitment, I personally look for former law enforcement, anybody with security background, anybody, because the reason for that is we have to formulate and document and present evidence in court of all the cases we deal with. You need to have somebody with the wherewithal and the knowledge of building a case. Now, we train them, don't get me wrong, but it's easier to train somebody that has experience in security, patrol, law enforcement, to have that mindset of building a case, testifying in court, because honestly, everything we deal with in the livability court is the same rules apply in any criminal court. You have reasonable doubt, you have probable cause, you have all that stuff. Even though it's for an overgrown lot, we take a picture, right? It's very high, or there's trash everywhere, and we have the observations. We take that documentation and we take it to court and we testify if we need to. So it's very important to pull the resources you need. Again, I just hired 3 former law enforcement. That's my forte, because I know, 1, they have the mindset, 2, they can present evidence in court without a problem. If I don't get that, that's fine. We will train you. We will give you our guidance and put you in the position and make sure that you're comfortable and not only enforcing, but documenting and presenting in court.
And are your code officers folks who drive around and notice things that are clearly violations, or is the system primarily complaint driven?
Proactive, reactive, just like a police officer. If they're not assigned to a case in their area, they better be patrolling and they better find something. And they know how I am about that. So they better, if it's out there, there's an issue, they better find it. And I don't mean to be harsh, but that's their job. And there's no idle time. There's no reason to wait for a complaint to come in. If you see something, you need to respond. You need to document, you need to make contact, and you need to resolve this issue, because there's going to be a problem. I'd rather address it before it goes to the neighborhood association or to the mayor's office or whatever have you. I'd rather get it before it gets to a point of festering and just try to resolve it before it gets to that point.
Well, and speaking of going to the mayor's office, I know residents in some cities get frustrated when they make a report and don't think things get handled. Is there any kind of tracking system that you use through Granicus or another way that gives feedback to the complainant?
Yes, ma'am. We have a wonderful mayor. I love that guy, Mayor Tecklenburg. He created the Citizen Services Desk. It is an online portal, or you can call in. If any complaint you have, from dog doing their business to overgrown lots, and it's tracked, it's given a case number. That we also receive complaints to the Citizen Services Desk. So the beauty of that is we have to respond to the complainant. We have to follow up. We have to let them know we resolved your problem, or honestly, sometimes it may not be a violation that they feel is a violation. So we need to explain to them that and have feedback that, I know you think this is a problem, but I'm sorry, it's just a neighbor don't like neighbor kind of situation, but it's not a violation of our laws. So we have a very good tracking system. We have, I believe, 4 individuals that all they do through the city is intake these complaints, and they're followed up on daily, and they're tracked.
Are they allowed to be anonymous complaints, and are they anonymous even to your officers?
They can be anonymous. The bad thing about anonymous is they may not know how it's resolved.
Yes,
right?
correct.
They may not think that it was taken care of when it was.
Mhm.
So honestly, a lot of people, I would say 98% are, my name's John Doe. I live here. I don't care if they know who I am, but there's that 2-3% that strictly say, I don't want to be involved, but you need to know about this. And that's okay, because we still take care of it.
Tell us how residents in Charleston gauge the success of code enforcement. And we've been told and agree to an extent that it's not the number of citations written. How do you gauge the success of your code enforcement work?
Less complaints. Less complaints. I am not a numbers guy with tickets. And I instilled that early on. I'd rather people be happy. I was challenged early on by neighborhood associations. You need to write tickets. You need to make a point. And I boldly told neighborhood associations, I am not going to write tickets if I don't have to. If we resolve an issue, that's a measure of success. We have it documented. If it was a warning and it was taken care of, that's a success. I do not determine or show my success on the numbers of tickets we write. I will be quite frank with you, and our ticket number is probably low. It's probably low because that's our goal. Our goal, and always has been since I started this in 2002, resolve the problem, not create issue, not create hardships for people with finances. Our goal is to resolve the problem. And I think I discussed with you the other day, we come across many hardships, right? Elderly people that don't have the resources. We go and we'll cut their grass for them. We do it at no expense to them. That's what we do. And that's how we measure our success.
Well, Dan, thank you. Thank you for holding out this model of success for us. I'm very grateful for the time that you've spent being here, and we hope to work with our code enforcement team in the days ahead. Let me ask you one last question, and that is, what would you tell us to do? What's the best thing that we, as well as our elected officials, can do to support a team like yours?
Well, I think if this is a need for your community, I have spoken and introduced our system to many, many cities throughout the United States, more in the South, even Savannah, Georgia. I encourage, come visit our court, come visit us, spend a day or two. We'll show you how we do it. I will come to you. I will, and I've done that before, and I will give you every tool that I have. And somebody from Savannah made the joke, yeah, we're good at R&D, rip off and delete. And I'm like, okay, you can have it. You can change it from City of Charleston livability or tourism to city or whatever. I don't care. If it works for your community, I'm good. I don't have any secrets. I have the knowledge, and I've always been willing to share what it's been a long road. Don't get me wrong. It's been a lot to build. I've been here 35 years. So, but we're at a level now that you can have it. I'll give you the thumb drive. I'll email it to you, policies, procedures, it doesn't matter. So whatever it takes to help your community, that's what we do.
Thank you. Well, I have a feeling that you're going to hear from us. So thank you for that offer. And I want to, in addition to thanking you, I want to thank our viewers for joining us tonight, for those who are here tonight and those who will watch this program in the future. And to tell you that if you want to stay a part of the action as Tybee makes decisions about the quality of life for our residents and addresses the growth of tourism and other related challenges. You can go to www.forevertybee.org and become a member. You'll get a written report of all the city and city-related meetings where decisions are made that impact your life on Tybee. This meeting has been recorded and you'll be able to watch it again on our website and share it with others soon. So we hope to see you at an in-person event or another Zoom in the upcoming days. And good night, everyone. Thank you, Dan, and good night, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you.